With this Pokemon Direct coming up, maybe I should do a live reaction to it. It wouldn't be worth it. The only thing that would get a reaction out of me is a Mystery Dungeon announcement, and I know that ain't happening.
Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX.
Well, shit. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon was a major part of my formative years as a Pokemon fan, and because of that, the series means as much to me as the main series does. So, as you can imagine, going 5 years without a release in the PMD series was pretty disheartening to say the least. I know 5 years doesn't seem like a long time in retrospect, but when you're a Mystery Dungeon fan, that shit feels like an eternity. See, I was gonna say Eternatus, but I have respect for you guys and more importantly for myself, so we're not gonna do that. To say that I was excited by the announcement of Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX would be a massive understatement. The Mystery Dungeon series usually released a game once every generation since its debut, and with Gen 7 having come and gone without an entry in the series, and with the clear shift in focus to the mobile market when it comes to developing spin-off games, the idea that the Mystery Dungeon series was over became more and more plausible. It reached the point where the inevitable disappointment of not getting a Mystery Dungeon 5 announcement at a Pokemon Direct or E3 showcase was a recurring meme within the fanbase. And then, January 9th, 2020 happened. A Pokemon Direct was scheduled to air that morning and it would be the longest Pokemon Direct to date. Most people expected one or both of two things: future content announcements for Sword and Shield and Diamond and Pearl remakes. And when the year 2006 was displayed on screen, many assumed that we were about to see an announcement of the latter, since 2006 was the Japanese release year for Diamond and Pearl. And then, a familiar blue text box appeared. My first thought was, holy crap, we're getting Mystery Dungeon 5, and they're showing footage of the first game to show how far the series has come, just like they did with the announcement of Sun and Moon. And then they revealed that this was not only a Mystery Dungeon game, but a remake of the Rescue Team games that would be released in less than 2 months, and the demo was going to be available that day. I don't know about you guys, but I thought it was too good to be true. It was the most excited I've been about a game release in a long time, the only other game coming close being Dragon Ball FighterZ Season 3 hype. The series means that much to me, and that's what I want to talk about today. Throughout this video, I'm going to be going over my history with each Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game, and how the series as a whole shaped my taste in both games and storytelling. This is what Pokemon Mystery Dungeon means to me. Allow me to set the scene for you. 2006 was not only the year Mystery Dungeon came to the West, but it was also the year I started playing Pokemon. I was 9 years old, and my first Pokemon game was Ruby. I was enamored with this series at that point, and when the anime special for Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team aired in September, I knew exactly what I wanted for my birthday the following April. As you can see, I was very late to the Pokemon train compared to other kids and pretty much had late onset Pokemania. Fast forward to April 2007. It was my 10th birthday and, like I hoped for, I had gotten Blue Rescue Team for my DS. I popped the game in and take the personality quiz. I remember reading the questions aloud with my mom in the room, and the results I got, according to her, described who I was back then to a T. I had gotten Totodile, a Pokemon whose name I remember hearing but had never seen before. Reminder, my first Pokemon game was Ruby, and it was the only main series Pokemon game I had played until getting Pokemon Pearl in summer of 2007, and there were many Pokemon that were absent in Ruby that I had never seen. So Blue Rescue Team was the game that introduced me to a lot of pre-Gen 3 Pokemon like Gengar, Tyranitar, Venonat, the Johto starters, etc. After I beat the game with Totodile as my player character, I didn't realize that having stuff to do after clearing the main story was a thing in games, so I immediately restarted the game to see what it would be like playing as a different Pokemon. And that's how I ended up with Cyndaquil, a Pokemon that would remain special to me to this day. No shade towards Totodile, but I had a lot more fun playing through the game as Cyndaquil, and he was a big part of why fire types are my favorite Pokemon type. Between the advanced anime, Mystery Dungeon, and Ruby, I wasn't at a loss for great Pokemon content, and I had plenty of things to consume while I waited for my next adventure. Explorers served a different role for me than Rescue Team. Instead of being a supplement that fueled my love for Pokemon, it was the only thing that kept me into Pokemon during a time where other parts of the franchise simply weren't doing it for me. I didn't have much fun with the Diamond and Pearl games on the DS, and the Diamond and Pearl anime wasn't much better. It honestly turned me off so much that I decided to get into Digimon so I can at least have something to watch while I waited for the Sinnoh saga to end. So I suppose I can at least thank the Diamond and Pearl anime for being so bad that it introduced me to something better. Heart Gold and Soul Silver were a saving grace for Generation 4 and the only games worth playing in that generation, but they wouldn't come out until 3 years after the release of Diamond and Pearl. So my main source of Poketainment in those years were Explorers of Time and Explorers of Sky. I did not get Explorers of Darkness, but it's pretty much the same game as Explorers of Time with a 5 Pokemon difference, so moving on. Because of the timing of my birthday, I ended up getting Blue Rescue Team and Explorers of Time within the same year. Blue Rescue Team in April of 2007, Explorers of Time in December of 2007, and Pokemon Pearl between the two in the summer. Even as a kid, I could tell that Explorers was aiming higher with its storytelling from the first scene. With the two main characters living in a guild for most of the main story, the supporting cast played a bigger role this time around. Not to discredit Rescue Team, but a lot more time and care went into fleshing out characters other than the player and their partner, and the guild setting helped to facilitate that. These weren't past rescue clients that intermittently showed up every now and then. These were comrades with the same goal of being great explorers. I ended up playing and replaying Explorers of Time way more than Blue Rescue Team, which was already saying a lot. And when Explorers of Sky came out, I dove headfirst into all the new features, especially the side stories. The story structure was very reminiscent of a shonen anime, a main duo or trio, and a decently sized cast of supporting characters that have a wide range of personalities. And this also happened to be the year that I started watching more shonen anime. Explorers just took the foundation that Rescue Team laid out and built upon it in every possible way. And since I played both of these games within the same year, the jump in quality hit that much harder. I never felt like they were adding more content purely for the sake of having more content. These games still understood the core of what made Mystery Dungeon so appealing, and all of the additions were made with that core in mind. Looking back on it, if it weren't for the Explorers games providing the entertainment that Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum couldn't, I would have fallen out of Pokemon as quickly as I had gotten into it. This is the Mystery Dungeon game that most fans don't like talking about. The one that people say never existed, the one that sustained on the franchise, this, that, and the third. As I was writing this script, I wanted to cut back as much as I could on the more review-esque observations. The point of this video wasn't to review these games, especially since I reviewed one of them already. The point was to share my personal experiences with them and the role each one played in my life. But it's hard to make that separation with Gates to Infinity because its status as the black sheep in the series is such a big part of its identity, and the bad word of mouth it was getting was a part of my personal experience with the game. The critical and the personal were intertwined in a way that divorcing the two would leave this section incomplete, and I can't do that. With that being said, I was 16 and towards the end of 11th grade when this game came out. I didn't have a 3DS at the time, and I wouldn't get one until Pokemon X and Y came out that fall. Gates to Infinity was also the only game in the series that I never actually owned. See, the library I worked at in my senior year of high school also rented out video games, including Gates, so I just rented the game from there, and since part of my job was putting back returned items, I could just return and re-rent the game in perpetuity until I beat it. So you know I did that shit. I didn't know what to expect from this game when I popped it in for the first time. 8 months of people telling me that it wasn't good made me a bit hesitant, but I pushed on anyway. And from the beginning, I could see a lot of the issues people had with it. And if you've had any interaction with the PMD fandom, you already know at least some of these complaints. There's only 5 starters, you can't do multiple missions in the same dungeon, and the big kicker, there were only 144 Pokemon in the game out of the 649 that existed at the time. This was Dexit before Dexit. So, yeah, there were a lot of flaws in this game, and it's definitely my least favorite in the series. But I'd be lying if I said that I didn't find some good in it. The one thing Gates has that no other game in the series does is that your team grows gradually with actual characters. That might sound weird, but bear with me. Recruiting other Pokemon to your team has always been a feature in the games, but none of the Pokemon you recruit actually play a role in the story. Even Magnemite from Rescue Team only exists to show you how the recruitment feature works in the game, and is practically irrelevant for the rest of it. With Gates, the team gradually gained more members that were actually used in the story, and they had an interesting dynamic since some of them don't like each other. After 2.5 games where the only members of my team that mattered were myself and my partner, it was cool to have an expanding clique. Since I was pretty much at the end of high school, Gates to Infinity didn't have as much influence on my taste as the previous games in the series did. But the taste that I did develop from those previous games helped me to see some of the nuggets of quality in Gates that I would have missed otherwise. So here we are, Super Mystery Dungeon. While this game dropped only 2.5 years after Gates, a lot had changed in my life since then. I moved to Atlanta, I was in my second year of college, and I had been doing YouTube for about a year. As soon as this game was announced, I knew that I wanted to do a video on it, which I did. Super Mystery Dungeon was the first Mystery Dungeon game that I was able to buy at launch. Being an 18-year-old college student, I had a lot more freedom than I had as a kid. It wasn't the first Pokemon game that I bought at launch with my own money, that honor goes to Black 2, but it was the first one where I didn't have to ask a parent or guardian for a ride to the store or tell them where I was going. 2015 in general was the year I realized that while I didn't have complete financial freedom, it was still way more than I ever had before. And your boy splurged a bit that year. But I digress. In a hilarious case of irony, the first PMD game that I bought as an adult was the first PMD game where the player character is explicitly a child. I know that some of the folks that don't like this game cite this as one of the reasons why, because for some reason playing as a child is suddenly off-putting in a franchise where most of the player characters are children, but I liked it. Super Mystery Dungeon was the game that made me feel like the series grew up with me, not because of the characters, but because of how the game worked. Instead of the hub world being in one general area, you started in a small town, then worked your way up to a bigger town, then the world expanded and you were traveling on your own, coming and going as you pleased. There were undertones of a young child eventually gaining independence and going off on their own, and with me being in college at the time and having played this series since elementary school, that was a theme that really resonated with me. This may sound corny and dramatic, and I won't blame you if you think I'm projecting here because I kinda am, but it was like I was watching myself grow up. It's just such a strange coincidence that as I was experiencing my own independence, the PMD series puts out a game that grants me the same thing. Despite the fact that I knew how much I loved this series, I still underestimated how much of an influence it had on me. A lot of my early preferences for Pokemon were influenced by my experience with Mystery Dungeon. My thoughts on how various Pokemon acted were based on their personalities in Rescue Team and Explorers reinforced my love of Grovyle that the Hoenn saga of the anime instilled in me. The series even affected my preferences for storytelling in general. I developed a liking for stories about personal growth, stories that explain lore only when it's needed, and stories with a wide variety of character personalities. I knew I was gonna have a lot to say, but I didn't expect it to be this much. And that's the best word I can use to describe this series. Unexpected. I wasn't expecting a side series to be just as engaging as the main series, if not more so. I wasn't expecting so much of my storytelling preferences to be rooted in my early experiences with this series. I definitely didn't expect that my most popular video on this channel to date would be a Mystery Dungeon video, especially since this channel was heavily MLP centric at the time. I think that's a testament to just how much the series means to not only me, but to all of its passionate fans. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is a series that knew the most important aspect of the main series, the personal journey, and applied that aspect in its own unique way, creating a lineup of games that stood out as something different, but was still, undeniably, Pokemon. I don't hope that the upcoming remake of Rescue Team can capture that same feeling. I know it will. That's how much I believe in this series. That is what Pokemon Mystery Dungeon means to me. Thanks for watching.